Imagine, just for a moment, that everything you know about humanity's origin is a shadow of a greater truth. The tale of humanity shaped from the earth, molded from clay, and brought to life with divine breath is deeply ingrained in us. But what if this familiar story is just a fragment, a simplified version that conceals a far more profound and unsettling reality? Hidden away in the pages of banned and neglected texts, stories that mainstream religion has long shunned, lies the narrative of a different kind of creation. These forgotten whispers tell us that the first humans were not beings of dust and earth, but beings of pure, undiluted light. Have you ever felt that there's more to our existence than what we're told? This feeling, that nagging sense of something greater, might just be the echo of a long-buried truth. To uncover this story, we must step into the pages of ancient texts like the Gospel of Philip and the Book of Enoch. Writings that were once hunted and condemned for the dangerous truths they contained. According to these accounts, the original humans weren't crafted to struggle, toil, or suffer. They were luminous beings, extensions of the divine essence itself. Imagine a creature free from hunger, free from the exhaustion of the flesh, and unburdened by the need for sleep or the sting of pain. These were not mortals shackled by material needs. They were creatures of pure consciousness, beings who existed in a state of eternal knowing and peace. Part 1. The Lost Beings of Light and the Secrets of Suppression. Why then have we never heard about these beings of light? Why were they removed from the holy books, erased from religious teachings, and buried under centuries of doctrine? The answer, unsettling as it is, points to power. Who holds it, how it is maintained, and why it cannot be shared. You see, these luminous beings had a connection to the divine that was unmediated and pure. They didn't need temples or priests, rituals or doctrines. Their very existence was worship, an unbroken line to the divine source. This idea alone was enough to disrupt the entire structure that religious and social institutions were built upon. If humans knew they could access the divine without intercessors, what would become of those who claimed the power to mediate on their behalf? The notion that humanity's original form was divine and self-sufficient threatened the foundations of control that societies have depended upon for millennia. Ancient rulers, both religious and political, understood that knowledge of this kind was dangerous. It eroded the justification for their power and challenged the very systems that kept people obedient. This knowledge, the gnosis of our true nature, was forbidden for a reason. The beings of light had no need for intermediaries or the structures that supported them. Their existence alone nullified any claim to spiritual authority by others. So what happened to these beings? The story deepens when we look into the Gnostic writings, those fragmented scrolls that survived despite relentless efforts to destroy them. They suggest that these beings of light were not simply forgotten. They were trapped, bound into a new form. And this is where we encounter one of the most controversial figures in esoteric teachings, the Demiurge, the jealous creator and the fall of light. The Demiurge, in stark contrast to the benevolent creator worshipped in mainstream religions, is depicted as a jealous and imperfect being. In Gnostic mythology, he is the architect of the physical world, but his creation was not born of divine love or compassion. It was born of a need for control. This figure, who saw the luminous beings as a threat to his power, sought to limit them, to shackle their boundless essence. And so he created the physical realm, a world dense and binding, a place where the spirit would be encased in flesh and subject to all its limitations. Think about that for a moment. A divine being of light, limitless and free, suddenly confined to a body that feels pain, hungers, tires, and ages. This was not a gift, not a benevolent act of creation, but an imprisonment. The Demiurge, in his act of shaping the material world, imposed chains upon the spirit, transforming luminous beings into beings of flesh, beings who would forget their origins and become caught in the endless cycles of survival and desire. The world was designed as a distraction, a place so consuming and demanding that the beings of light would forget who they once were. If you've ever wondered why the human experience is marked by suffering, restlessness, and an unquenchable longing for more, consider this. What if these feelings are remnants of a time when we were more than what we are now? What if the endless search for meaning, the deep-rooted sense that we are missing something, is the echo of our true nature trying to break through the surface? A world designed to distract. The world created by the Demiurge was not merely a physical space but a construct designed to dominate perception. He surrounded humanity with systems that reinforced the illusion, structures that drew attention away from the inner light. These systems are not just metaphors. They are real, embodied in the institutions that shape our daily lives. The endless pursuit of status, wealth, and material satisfaction is part of this grand design, a design that keeps us so preoccupied with the external that we rarely look inward. And the Demiurge was not alone in maintaining this world of illusion. Gnostic texts speak of entities known as the Archons, agents of the Demiurge who enforce his rule. These Archons were seen as cosmic gatekeepers, figures who manipulated human consciousness and kept it tethered to the material plane. Their influence was subtle but pervasive, embedded in the very systems of belief and power that structure human society. For centuries, knowledge of this alternative origin story was suppressed. The teachings that could remind humanity of its true nature were labeled heretical, dangerous, and blasphemous. The mystics who dared to speak of these truths were silenced, their writings burned, their voices buried. Yet some remnants survived, hints, symbols, and encoded messages that point to a greater understanding of who we are. The divine spark within. Here is where it becomes personal. According to these hidden teachings, the luminous beings may have been trapped, but their divine essence was never fully extinguished. It remains buried deep within each of us as a spark, a fragment of that original light. It's the part of us that seeks, that questions, that refuses to accept the world as it is presented. This spark is why some people feel drawn to the esoteric, why some seek answers beyond the boundaries of traditional teachings. It is a memory, a distant and often faint reminder of a time when we were free. The Gnostics called this true knowledge gnosis, not an intellectual understanding but an experiential realization. To achieve gnosis is to remember, to awaken to the truth of our origins and to recognize that we are more than mere flesh and bone. This awakening is powerful because it challenges the entire foundation of the world built by the Demiurge. If enough people were to reclaim this knowledge, the structures of control, religious, political, and social, would begin to erode. The power that relies on humanity's ignorance would be shattered. But this is not a call to rebellion in the traditional sense. It is a call to remember, to look inward and find that spark, to nurture it, and to let it grow until it becomes a flame that can illuminate the path back to our true selves. This is why the knowledge was suppressed, why it was hunted and nearly destroyed. A being who knows its own divine potential is not a being that can be easily controlled. So if you have ever felt that pull, that inexplicable desire to search for meaning beyond the material world, you are not alone. It is the spark within you, a relic of your true nature, calling you to awaken. The first step in reclaiming this lost truth is recognizing that it is there, waiting to be found. And once you see it, you'll understand why it was hidden in the first place. Because knowledge of this kind is not just powerful, it is liberating. Part 2. Breaking the illusion and embracing the fire within. Now that we have explored the existence and suppression of the luminous beings, we must turn to what happened after their binding, and more importantly, what lies within us today. The stories do not end with the caging of the divine spark. Instead, they evolve into tales of rebellion, resilience, and the undying nature of that original essence that still whispers within. This hidden narrative holds a mirror to the human experience, revealing that we are not just passive prisoners in this material world. We are also heirs to a forgotten power that has the potential to break free from these chains. When the beings of light were trapped in bodies of flesh by the Demiurge, they did not lose all of their divine qualities. The spark within remained, however small and obscured. Some teachings suggest that this fragment of divine light, once buried deep within each human, continued to search for ways to awaken. This is where the concept of gnosis comes into play, not just as knowledge, but as an awakening, a radical remembering of one's divine nature. To understand this, we need to look at the remnants of ancient wisdom that speak to this struggle for awareness and freedom. The Fireborn, the unquenchable spark. Among the whispers of lost history, some writings speak of humans who were different, who carried within them an energy so intense that they could not be subdued. These were the Fireborn, beings whose essence was a mix of both the divine light and the raw, untamed force of rebellion. Unlike the original luminous beings who existed in perfect harmony with the divine, the Fireborn carried a more volatile spark. It was a spark that pushed them to question, to disrupt, to search endlessly for truth, even when surrounded by darkness. The idea of the Fireborn finds echoes in various ancient traditions. In Persian mythology, there are references to beings infused with a divine flame, a force that could create but also destroy. This fire was not a literal blaze but an uncontainable drive, a fierce will that resisted the confinement imposed by the material world. These beings were seen as both dangerous and sacred. Dangerous because they could not be controlled, and sacred because they represented the relentless spirit of creation and transformation. If we look closely, history is filled with figures who seem to embody this Fireborn spirit. Visionaries, rebels, mystics, those who spoke truths that threatened the status quo, who led movements that shifted the course of humanity. They were not bound by the illusion that the Demiurge created. They looked beyond it, questioned it, and often paid a high price for their defiance. But they were not just rebels for rebellion's sake. They were seekers of truth, guided by an inner knowledge that there was more to existence than what the material world presented. The role of the Archons and the system of control. To maintain his rule over this physical realm, the Demiurge relied on his agents, known as the Archons. These entities were more than just mythical figures. They were embodiments of control, representing the various systems that keep humanity bound to the material. The Archons fed on ignorance, thrived on humanity's disconnection from its true nature, and worked tirelessly to enforce a world where the spark of divine knowledge remained hidden. But how do the Archons manifest in our world today? In the Gnostic interpretation, they are not just abstract forces, but are reflected in the very structures that govern society. The relentless push for conformity, the systems that promote fear over understanding, and the institutions that discourage inner reflection, all can be seen as extensions of the Archons' influence. They are present in the distractions that keep people from looking inward, in the cycles of fear and desire that keep the mind occupied and the spirit asleep. Consider the constant barrage of noise that surrounds modern life, the endless pursuit of material success, the addiction to external validation, and the fear-driven narratives that dominate public discourse. These are not just random aspects of life, but are intricately connected to the Archons' work. Their goal is to keep the mind fixed on the external, the impermanent, the trivial. The more distracted we are, the less likely we are to seek the hidden spark within. But there's a deeper level to this system of control. The Archons, according to some esoteric teachings, do not just manipulate what we see and do, but also influence how we think. This is where the illusion becomes most potent, because it is not just about physical limitations, but about shaping our beliefs and perceptions. The greatest trick the Demiurge played was convincing humanity that it is nothing more than its body and mind, and that the material world is the only reality. Yet even in this carefully constructed illusion, the Fireborn spirit persists, refusing to be silenced. Awakening to Gnosis. Despite the overwhelming forces designed to suppress the divine spark, stories of Gnosis, the awakening to true knowledge, persisted. Gnosis is more than just an intellectual understanding. It is an experiential realization, an inner knowing that breaks through the fog of illusion. To experience Gnosis is to see beyond the veils, to remember that one's essence is not bound by flesh or dictated by the material world. It is a moment of profound clarity where the fire within flares up and reminds the soul of its true nature. For those who experience this awakening, the world never looks the same again. The systems that once seemed all-encompassing appear fragile, and the truths that were taught unquestioningly are seen for what they often are: half-truths designed to control. Gnosis doesn't free one from the physical world entirely. but it shifts the perspective. Life is no longer solely about survival and accumulation, but becomes a journey of rediscovering and expressing that inner light. But awakening is not an easy path. The forces of the Demiurge and the Archons don't simply yield when the spark begins to grow. They respond with resistance, often intensifying the distractions and fears that keep humanity docile. Yet, this is where the Fireborn shine brightest. The stories of ancient mystics, revolutionaries, and philosophers who faced persecution for their beliefs reveal a pattern. Those who seek gnosis are met with trials. These trials are not just obstacles but part of the journey, challenges that temper the fire, strengthen the resolve, and deepen the understanding of one's true nature. The modern echo of ancient truths. What does this mean for us today? In a world that seems to pull us in 1,000 different directions, how do we find that spark and nurture it? The answer lies in reclaiming the ancient wisdom that has been scattered across cultures and eras. From the mystics of Persia, who spoke of souls born of fire, to the teachings of the Kabbalah that describe humans as vessels holding divine sparks, the message is the same. We are more than what we have been led to believe. Modern spiritual practices that encourage inner reflection, meditation, contemplative thought, and the exploration of esoteric teachings can serve as keys to unlock the gnosis within. They help quiet the noise, peel back the layers of distraction, and reveal the subtle flame that has been there all along. It is not an easy path, and it is not a one-time revelation. Awakening to gnosis is a continual process, a cycle of forgetting and remembering, of losing oneself and finding the light again. In a society that values the external over the internal, the journey toward gnosis is an act of quiet rebellion. It challenges the narrative that we are here solely to work, consume, and obey. It dares to suggest that within each of us lies the power to reconnect with the original essence that once illuminated the realms beyond the material. This journey is not just personal, but has the potential to be transformative on a collective level. Imagine a world where people recognize their own divine nature, where systems of control lose their power because the controlled awaken to their true selves. So where do we go from here? The knowledge of our origins as beings of light and the possibility of being fireborn in a world of confinement beckons us to take the first step, to remember. This means questioning the narratives handed to us, seeking out the stories that were hidden or lost, and daring to go inward, past the barriers of fear and doubt. The path of gnosis is not about rejecting the world but seeing it for what it is, a stage where the soul can either remain asleep or awaken to its brilliance. This awakening is not reserved for mystics or sages but is the birthright of all who seek it. And while the world around us, influenced by the Archons, may try to keep the focus on the mundane, the fire within can guide us back to the light we once were. Each moment of insight, each act of courage, and each step toward inner awareness chips away at the illusion, making space for the divine spark to grow. To embrace this journey is to reclaim what was hidden, to connect with the original blueprint of humanity as something beyond flesh and bone, beyond fear and conformity. The luminous beings of the past may have been bound, but their essence never died. It lives in us, waiting for the moment when we recognize it, nurture it, and let it shine once more. So when you feel that pull, that restless desire for something more, know that it is not a flaw or a distraction. It is the spark calling out to be remembered, the voice of the light within reaching through the layers of the world's illusion, reminding you that you were never just dust. You were always something more, something divine, waiting to awaken. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time if you are still with me, and if you would like, please think about subscribing to our channel. You may then receive updates on new videos that will provide you with additional knowledge, manifestations, philosophy, and personal development ideas. Your thoughts and opinions regarding this video would be much appreciated. Your contribution stimulates our cosmic research, and we are incredibly appreciative of your being here. And never forget that we are always here for you and wish you the best possible life filled with success and happiness. I hope you have an amazing day. If you have watched until the end, please respond with MMM, Master Motivational Mindset, so we can connect.